I'm T-Set, and this is a Tea Time Lapse. If you've been with me for at least a year now, you probably remember me participating in a Halloween collab hosted by my friend Sunny. Last year was Monster Idol themed, and I made an alien named Mariana who was on a city pop group called Neon Constellation. This September, Sunny polled her audience, and Monster High won as the theme for this Halloween. We did change the theme to being Monster Higher Education, so all of the characters that we've made are university students. Each of the 4 teams in the collab chose a different club that our characters would all be members of, and my team chose gardening. I'm not going to be including concepting stuff here in this video, but there's a lot that I've posted over on my Patreon if you're interested. All the relevant posts are tagged Halloween collab. In short, I was originally thinking about being a Lamb of Tartary or Baromets, but I ended up getting kind of stuck on the idea when it came to designing the character. So I switched to one of my other ideas, which was a Honduran white bat. Honduran white bats are little fruit bats that like to cluster underneath the leaves of a plant that, at least in English, is called expanded lobster claw. I imagine so named because of their distinct flowers, which already gives me a very visually distinct thing to draw in a gardening-themed picture. And me choosing to make a vampire who's a Honduran white bat is a bit of a Hannah Ayobi's Monsters Abroad reference. I'm still sad that wasn't greenlit. It will live on forever in my heart. Anyway, I believe in Spanish the word for bat is murciélago. So I named my character Murciélago, and Murcia is a digital photography major. When my team decided on being a gardening club, I thought of some photography that I've seen that's really interesting and uses plants and lighting and sometimes projections and fog to create really interesting ethereal images. Another member of the gardening club kept seeing her walking across campus carrying flowers all the time, and so eventually stopped her and invited her to try out ghoulish gardening. That was a year ago, and she is a fixture of ghoulish gardening now. I came up with a bunch of potential outfits for Murcia, but I eventually realized that I was going to draw her gardening, and so she really needed to have a more practical outfit. She's still in heels because Monster High, but I switched out her mini skirt and tights for some pants and gave her some gardening gloves. I was worried the outfit might be a bit plain, but my friends really like it, so I think it did an okay job. The little skirt on top of the pants is actually inspired by ones that Unha from VVZ was wearing during a dance practice video I watched while working on this character. It's kind of too bad that Murcia is sitting down in this picture because you kind of don't get the full effect of them. And here I'm drawing the lobster claw inflorescence and leaves. Just trying to get the sketch clean enough to move on to line art. In the thumbnail/loose sketching stage, I had an idea for the lighting that I end up discarding. I thought of making her backlit by a strong white light, but I realized that her white hair would disappear into it then. I almost abandoned the sketch when I realized this, but I didn't have any other ideas that I liked more, so I decided to commit to it and just change the lighting. And at this point, I was just focusing on getting the line art done. These shoes with the ribbon laces are actually inspired by an illustration I saw while I was working on this project, and I added this subtle little bat shape to the toes. I've done multiple designs this year with this lettuce hem, and these tied or buttoned up side slits. I didn't want the bench to be too complex, but I also couldn't resist giving it some, wrought iron details. I knew a bunch of it would get covered up by the leaves, but I wanted to map it all out anyway. And I finally realized that I'd made this hand way too big. I might have overcompensated and made it a bit too small in response, but I don't know. I don't know if I properly captured Murcia's personality in this picture, because I feel like she's a very warm individual. But I also kind of liked the idea of making a piece where she appears a bit intimidating. just because she's a vampire and this is a Halloween piece. Like, why is the point of view from around her feet, and why is there a big shovel? I did have another rough sketch for the picture that was a lot more friendly and cute, but I just thought this was a lot more visually dynamic. I don't know, Murcia does drink blood, so maybe she has a bit of a dark side to her, but she's very sweet and affectionate towards her friends. In fact, when Murcia is tired, she gets straight up clingy. Murcia always has her little Honduran white bat keychain with her, and she has like a collection of leaf bags. This fanny pack or bum bag, depending upon where you live, is one that she actually usually wears across her chest, but I wanted to put it on the floor so that the keychain would be more visible in the picture. I also drew the gardening club's emblem on the bag. I kind of love how much you can imply about the texture of an object in line art with just a few dots and lines. These bangs gave me some difficulty for some reason. And I decided to go very simple with the hair since it's so small in the composition. And now to cover up all of this work that I did on the bench. Originally, I was only going to do line art for the closest inflorescence and then do the rest of them lineless, but I ended up changing my mind about that later. Quickly adding my signatures to the line art. And this is just me going through and making some of the lines lighter. And I decided to give texture to the leaves more lazily rather than having to render it into every leaf. Quickly adding on the piping on the pants, which I realized that I had forgotten. And it's time for flats. By this point in time, I had a good idea about what I wanted to try to do with the lighting. Since her hair is white and her pants are black, it makes the most sense to put the darkest color behind her head and the lightest color down at her feet. Although you can see me debate changing the color of her shirt and her pants a couple times. I made the top of her face and her ears and her fingers be yellow to reference to the coloration of the Honduran white bat, but I ended up getting rid of the coloring on her fingers. Now that the flatting is done, it's time to figure out the lighting situation. One of the nice things about me changing up the lighting is that I didn't really have to render an actual room behind her because it was just in darkness. Here you can see me adding in more expanded lobster claw behind her. They're actually very simple and easy to draw, especially at such a small scale. And I really didn't think about the leaves that were in the back that hard. Same for these pots that I added to the back. Adding some bats to the shirt and the arm warmers. And some teeth to the back of the gloves. There's also an expanded lobster claw pattern on the far leg of her pants. And this is me deciding to give line art to the expanded lobster claw in the background. Making this one shoe a bit bigger. Just kind of testing some stuff out real quick. And deciding to go forward with my idea, I make all the flats darker. I momentarily considered doing everything through masking layers, but decide instead to do things my normal way, which is individually picking each color and applying it to each layer. I know it's slower, but the things I would like to do in the future are, I think, better facilitated by this method. I just need to find the energy to do more interesting things. There are definitely less time-consuming ways to go about digital art, but I feel like I can't quite give up some of my approach that I gained from doing traditional art when I was younger. I really haven't done enough shading this year. I really want to up my skills. The way I did the lighting in this picture doesn't actually make sense, but it's fine. It's fine. The effect is cool, no one cares. Finally adding in the suggestion of some tiles to give an actual texture to the floor instead of it just being a color. I think defining the material that the floor is actually made out of does a lot to ground the image in a real space. The last few times I've shaded faces, I've had to fiddle around a lot. I definitely need to sit down and do some proper practice from reference. I love white-haired ladies. I blame Lady Amalthea from The Last Unicorn and Kira from The Dark Crystal, both films from my childhood. Fun fact, since I was a teenager, my Sona has gone back and forth between having white hair or ginger hair, and doing this piece really made me start considering making my Sona have white hair again, but I'm not sure. I'm planning on making a new reference sheet for my Sona in November, and maybe I'll make an alternative white version just in case. I'm just adding some additional shading to the shadows at this point, as well as some colors bouncing on to objects from other objects nearby. And using, I believe, an add layer to add some extra glow. I came back later and this eyebrow was bothering me. I also realized that I hadn't added any light to the inflorescences in the back. I changed the arm warmers to go up over the thumbs, and I also added some extra detail to the shoes, so now they have teeth. I really fussed about considering adding something to the top. I was just worried that it was too basic and plain, but nothing seemed to really suit my fancy. Since I pushed the arm warmers up onto the hand, I decided to get rid of the yellow fingertips to avoid the fingers blending into the arm warmers. I didn't like the cutout, so I considered a necklace again, but I just couldn't think of anything I liked, but I gave her some bracelets instead. And this is the final piece. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons for your support. $2 gets you at least 2 months early access to my videos, although at the moment I am scheduled a bit further out.